good morning, good evening from wherever you're watching around the world. Today I think for this webinar series, the idea is we had been or have been working on the payment gateway platform on OneKhusa throughout the year since we had officially rolled out in December. But then I think what we feel is important is much as we are churning out features and we're rolling out, we do regularly provide documentation on some of the things that we have been working on. We think it's important to also just be giving out a structured cadence, which will help us to be able to, have a release. One such as this, perhaps we'll see likely on a quarterly basis on some of the things that we have been working on just to keep the community engaged. And then also sometimes we may roll out features, put some documents there. It might not appear to be as clear. So we think it will also be good to, much as we'll be doing those documented rollout features, it will be good to also complement that with this webinar series. And then, of course, we can sort of have a conversation about, what is some of the motivation, what is some of the thinking around some of the things that we actually are planning on rolling out. So that, I think, moving forward will be the structured approach that we'll be taking. Throughout the follow-up webinar series, you may see other members from the OneKhusa team who may occasionally also come and showcase some of the features. But of course, maybe before we get started, for those who have seen this is maybe the first webinar, I am Henry Sauzande. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for OneKhusa Limited. OneKhusa Limited, which is the company behind the OneKhusa Payment Gateway. And then today's series is about showcasing some of the features that we've been busy at work with. Much as we did roll this feature out or this product out sometime in December last year, the idea is to keep on evolving the product to get to a place where, one, we are meeting the customers where they are, and then two, also we are keeping up with the current trends and, try to streamline efficient payment gateway and usages and rolling out and feature sets towards the community itself. For this webinar series, we're sort of focusing on about 4 major features that we have rolled out. We've got other features that we've rolled out. Those are more targeted towards the sort of internals of the payment gateway itself. But I think today's concentration and the webinar series is more focused on the areas which we feel our customers will benefit the most with the OneKhusa Payment Gateway platform. For the 4 features that we're rolling out, so we've got, and I think 3 of those kind of speak towards our sort of ethos behind the OneKhusa Payment Gateway. Much as we want to have gateway that is functioning, that is robust, that can scale, we also believe consumer protection, customer engagement are very important features or very important pillars to have for the payment or for any payment gateway within a mature market. Our rollout was trying to focus more on customer delight. we've had a few engagements. I think from what we got, there's really hasn't been a streamlined way for our customers to engage us. Some people may know our teams directly, perhaps, and some people may not. But we still think it's important to have a platform in which we can allow our customers to be able to interact with our team. That is to support their integration journeys wherever they may be, whether it's just understanding some of the features, perhaps you want to understand pricing, or you are indeed having a technical challenge or glitch that you may need supporting with. And then, of course, also, once you have gone live, it's very important that we are able to support you in your operational journey. That is mainly around payments. OneKhusa's payment gateway is in itself powered by a direct payment rails, which is connected to all the financial institution providers across the country. That is spanning across banks as well as mobile wallets. And, you know, for these kinds of systems, it's very possible for a transaction to maybe to be stuck somewhere, whether it's in our platform or it happened outside. Perhaps somebody was pushing funds to their preferred bank account, but then the bank was not able to credit or debit the transaction, depending on what you're doing. We've brought in a way through dispute management that you'll be able to do directly from the portal to be able to submit any challenges or requests or complaints that you may have to do with ongoing live transactions. And then, of course, to go live, I think the traditional approach, which is the approach that we also initially took, is that you normally have to engage us, perhaps through email or through phone, whichever communication possible means, to say, look, I've done the integration testing and we would actually like to go live and start processing real transactions. And I think from there's sort of expectations from two sides. One side is to the integrator, the innovator, the merchant, and then also the other side is from us, the payment gateway provider, more on regulation standpoint. So as you're aware, OneKhusa's is also a regulated entity. It's a regulated product, which means that we have to comply with all regulatory requirements. Much as it's important to provide an innovation rail, we have to also be in compliance. So I think where the rubber meets the road is that there's always a point where now you say, okay, I want to be able to operate, and for us, we give you a set of requirements under KYC. And also, even on a technical side, we actually require you to complete the integration itself, do the necessary tests, do successful tests, do failing tests, a bit of both, and maybe some scenarios in between. So we actually require all this to happen for you prior to you going live, because then we are assured that you've actually possibly tested all the scenarios. This is in the sandbox environment, and that you are able to mitigate all the necessary issues that may occur when you actually go into production. So I'm happy to announce that we've actually streamlined. I think this should be the first payment gateway in Malawi to streamline the going live feature through the KYC. You'll be able to actually submit your request directly to the portal, and then have engagements that will actually be able to interface with our compliance team and our operations team throughout the entire journey, from the minute you submit your first document to the point that you're actually go live, or you're not going live, and then we'll actually give you the reasons why you didn't. The idea for us is to ensure that you are actually able to go live. That is the whole point. I think it's not meant to be necessarily a deterrence, but we thought it was important to give you a streamlined way of actually doing this, so you're clear, where both parties are clear on why is it that you haven't actually gone live. If you haven't gone live, what information did you not provide? Or if you did provide the information, then we are actually updating you towards where the progress of your submissions are going. So this will be good, because in that way, should anything happen, we'll also have an auditable way, an end-to-end way of tracing where some compliance issues or why you haven't gone live is, versus the manual process that is sort of there now, and it is there, I think, for the industry as a whole. And then finally, of course, we also want to give developers delight, and then so the final features is about idempotency around API requests. That's just to make sure that you don't actually send 100,000 to an account more than you should. So you should send the money exactly once, and then we have added some guardrails to make sure that we are actually able to mitigate the likelihood of you sending duplicate transactions. So I think without further ado, let me take you through some of the features themselves. Okay, so as I said, the first thing is let me just go back there. Let me go back. Yeah, is submitting KYC. So I think now, for those that have actually used the platform, the things that we've seen is most people would actually try to click the go live or the live mode on the top right corner there, because normally it's in test mode, and then they would be welcomed by some kind of error message. That was because, as I said, the going live was a structured process, which was largely manual. And then now what we've done is, if you log into the merchant portal, now when you're in test mode and you've done your necessary tests and you want to go live, the process will be that you click that submit KYC button. And when you submit the KYC button, you're sort of welcomed here by the terms of onboarding, which will explain the things that you actually need to do. And then we have actually given like a stepwise process that lets you, depending on what type of organization you are, go through a journey in which you actually submit the actual required documentation. So the first part is that you're asked to choose your account type. So like someone can just say they're a merchant, like that you can see. And then, of course, we need you to give us the details of your business, of your entity. Depending on what applies to you here, you'll be able to choose the sector in which it belongs to, your business registration number, your tax identification number. Of course, this is in compliance, in line with KYC requirements. Postal address, email information. So basically, we just need to know a little bit about your business, your endeavor, your setup, and once you actually provide these details, or here is where we're actually requiring you to provide the details themselves, and then you will sort of submit them through the portal itself. You give your email addresses, your phone numbers, your website. Obviously, we're actually working with digital payment platforms. So definitely a website address is something that we expect you to have. And so in here, of course, once you provide that, there's also a privacy policy, which is actually available. It's been available all this time, but we think it's also important to just highlight it in here so that you are actually clear in line with the Data Privacy Act and data privacy laws that are there now in place. One should be clear of what sort of your rights are towards privacy policy, and then I think that will be documented in there. And of course, you can always access the privacy policy anytime you want, even post this process. But it's there. You need to agree to the policies. Then next, you are actually asked to give these business documents, which is the business case. For those that haven't actually gone through the go live process, this is information that we ask anyway already. But now, as you can see, it's more streamlined. You're actually intentionally shown there like what it is that you're supposed to submit. So I will have to provide a business case, of course, and I will have to provide my business registration certificate, and then an ID, of course. So it can be a national ID, it can be a passport, and then, of course, we need you to give us a proof of address in line with KYC requirements. Once you submit those documents, you can actually, go back in case you made a mistake. Maybe you want to change the document itself. You're actually able to provide. And then, of course, you give the name, your merchant name, of course, the one that you want to be registering by. So that's the first time when you go live. You actually need to give us a merchant account, and this account will be created in the live environment. So much as this portal has got a toggle switch where you choose between test and live mode, in the back end, it's actually pointing to entirely a different environment. They are actually physically separated. We're just sort of managing how users are perceiving these. So for these details, you actually need to submit them so that we create these details in the live environment now. Of course, for this one, then you need to give your bank details. These are the details of your bank account that will be doing your settlement to. And then, of course, once you submit, you are actually given a summary of the information that you've actually submitted. You can actually go there back and maybe edit in case there's something that you had missed, having seen here. So this is just giving you like a summary overview of the details in which you've actually you are going to submit. So you're actually given a final prompt there to confirm that everything is okay. You can actually submit the information. When you're ready to proceed, you just say yes, proceed. And then once you finish, now you enter into the tracking the progress stage, because obviously much as you've submitted, which is good, that's the first thing that we want you to do. We also feel it's important to keep stakeholders engaged, to let you know if there is anything that would actually stop your application submission from actually proceeding there. So anything to do with the submission, of course, within the portal, you can go in and track this submission. But then also, if there are any events or if there are any changes that have happened, we are actually sending those over to you. You get notified you probably receive a notification through your registered email for any progress that may be, provided as we are processing, your submission. So, of course, here, when you submit your application, then our operations team at the back end, there's a combination of some AI reviewings and also their actual operations teams that are going through the submission itself, and then giving you information or requesting for additional information throughout the entire submission until your KYC is finalized. At the end of the day, as I said, we want you to go to market in a concise manner in as little time as possible. But then it's also important to ensure that we are compliant for all the regulations that are actually required for us to comply with. But suffice it to say, the idea is we hope now this will be able to streamline how we approach the issue of different merchants and different businesses being able to go live and start processing payments on our platforms. So we hope this will be a welcome feature that will actually allow some transparency towards the community itself to sort of understand, like, much as I'm submitting this information, where's the progress, where's my KYC submission, why haven't I gone live, or if I've gone live, then I'm actually notified instead of having to do follow-up phone calls or emails or anything like that. We've also got a set of SLAs that we'll be adhering to ensure that we give you feedback in a timely manner. And then, of course, for the next feature, I think, again, speaking of that, we had been noticing, I think, in the communities that we do get a number of questions for different things. And depending on where you are in your OneKhusa journey, you may be just starting out, or you may have actually started already doing some integrations, but there's always somewhere where the further clarity or further information or more context is required, and you don't really have a streamlined way of talking to us. So we've got the emails, which are fine. They've been serving their purpose, and they do serve their purpose. But then during operation or business hours, especially, this is Monday through Friday, 8 o'clock a.m. until about 4:30. We want to give our merchants, our innovators, a way in which you can actually directly engage with our teams in case you don't understand anything. So we've embedded direct chat in the platform itself. And so you can see this chat window here, context, where you can actually ask questions about something that you don't understand. Maybe you're stuck somewhere, you want to get that feedback from our operations team. So you'll be able to, directly interact with us. And then in the back end, we actually are using a customer engagement platform, which will actually be able to receive this information in real time. That just obviously, helps us to interact with our stakeholders, you in this case. And we've done a step further, instead of just putting it in the merchant portal, which is for those that are using the portal, it's also available on the OneKhusa website. So the idea is to have a broader audience in that way, because then we can have those that actually are interested in, or perhaps just want to get information about OneKhusa. They haven't yet started their journey, which they can go to the website. And then, we have those that are actually already registered. They've started their integration journey, and then perhaps they just need some support, one or two places. So we think it's important to just have an exposure for the platform in both cases. So, of course, the first time you engage the platform, it'll ask you some questions, to give your email addresses and so on. But then for subsequent times, then we should be able to recognize you from who you were from last time. And then in there, we should be able to give some contextual information so that we can even remember the last time if you had asked for something specific and you were perhaps following up. So you've asked for help last time, you got your response, but maybe because you got your response, there is some other information that you wanted to know. So if you go back to the same platform, if you're using the same browser and so on, we'll know that it's still you. Our operations team, our support team will be able to have that context, and then they, can have like a conversation that can actually follow on from there. So we think this will also be good in that, there's that streamlined way again of, getting feedback on specific issues. Of course, this platform is more of you're working during the business hours time, but not necessarily like an offline late night session. You want to know the answer to something. I think in future that is an area that we are also strongly considering, and on how best we can be able to assist. But I think this one is for just your day-to-day ongoing issues that you would actually want to get feedback on something specific. And then, of course, we've got dispute management. And so dispute management is, again, this is what I was saying, you're operating in the live environment. Perhaps you had done a transaction. So let's see here. I want to search for a previous transaction that I did. It says that it's successful, but in fact, perhaps maybe the person didn't actually receive the funds. And so what I can do, I can actually just copy the transaction reference number. And within the portal, under complaints, we'll see somewhere it says disputes. So I can actually open a dispute. And dispute is just that. It's a structured way in which we'll be handling any complaints that may have happened as a result of merchants transacting with the OneKhusa's platform, be it that you were sending funds from OneKhusa's to another institution, or you were sending funds from the funds were coming from an institution to OneKhusa's itself, but somehow the funds did not arrive in a timely manner, or there was some unexpected behavior that actually happened. So this is what you'll be able to, send your disputes for. There are unauthorized transactions. Perhaps there's a duplicate charge, or the service was not rendered, or there was some kind of processing error, as it happens with these systems that are talking to various different systems that go through different networks and different mediums. So there are a number of reasons why transactions can fail. We generally don't want them to fail. I think we strive to ensure that transactions are successful. But however, there are always external factors, glitchy networks, some systems perhaps not processing transactions fast enough, or not processing them in a timely manner, that may actually cause the transaction to fail. So when they do fail, how are we, handling those kinds of things? And so that's what sort of this dispute management is looking at. And so within here, I can actually give some information, and you can see there actually I can even give evidence the transaction itself, maybe attach a screenshot. Remember that transaction reference, I actually pasted it in there, so I can actually pull the original transaction. And all this is to say that it will actually help us to be able to efficiently track your transaction from our operations side. That will be able to show. So this is how the dispute would look like from the back-end side now, from our internal teams. They will actually be able to see this information and, to get some details around how, the processing of the dispute itself. And so these are things that we think are important that will be able to help us to actually manage the dispute itself. So this is actually showing that that dispute that was actually just submitted. These are the details for it. And then in here, of course, we can actually even add additional information as well, so that we can actually interact with the person that actually raised the dispute itself. And so we have sort of streamlined, as you can see in these screenshots, how we'll be able to manage the various events or steps that are actually happening towards your actual dispute itself. The idea is once we are actually able to identify the institution and all that, we will actually be interacting with that institution. So this transaction was to do with a certain institution that failed, and then our operations team will actually be able to engage that institution to carry out an investigation. And these are things that we actually already do, but I think, there wasn't really like a systematic way from your side, especially from our users, of our customer side, to be able to, have a visibility of what is actually going on for the state of the transaction itself. What tends to happen is normally, you have a case, we're following it up, and then, you kind of just don't hear from us for some time. And we know that it can be frustrating at times where you don't actually know where that issue is. And in the background, perhaps we're following it up, but then because the issue is a multi-stake or multi-party related issue, that is to say that it deals with more than one or two parties or three organizations. That is the institution, or maybe the transaction could have stopped between the switch and so on. So because there are so many parties involved, sometimes we may not give you feedback in a timely manner because we're actually waiting for information to flow so that we can actually ably support you. But then now with this feature, you will actually be able to see, you'll be able to know what is actually going on with the state of your dispute and the actual remedy itself, whether we'll be able to refund you and so on, and if we can't refund you, we'll also explain why, according to the information that we've been given. But I think the most important thing there to know is that we have actually now given you a streamlined way of handling these disputes. And then we think, this will be good for the community. One thing is that we were saying that it will give you that sort of like transparency view of what's going on for any complaints. But also, because we've got the process, streamlined in here, and this speaks to the other features that we're actually looking at, the customer delight angle. I think it gives us a way to also improve on how we handle service delivery, because now that we've got this information sitting centrally within our platforms, we use the same data to actually analyze, how efficient are we responding to issues. are there any areas of concern or areas that keep popping up? Perhaps that might look at process engineering or possible areas of improvements, or anything that may indicate a structured way or a way to improve that process. So I think it's good that we have these features in place. Look at it from that point of view as well, that we'll have the necessary data to know whether we need to do further engagements with the community, or we need to better look at a certain process, perhaps with the way it was designed. There's always room for improvement. So we've got that way of now being able to know that information. And so we think it'll be good for the community at large, because then you'll be able to have an understanding, or we'll be able to have an understanding of how our merchants, our innovators are able to interact with our platform. And if they're interacting with our platform, are there any opportunities in which we can perhaps improve something or change? And so I think the benefit is both in that case. It's beneficial for us because we have the information, but it's also beneficial for the community because now you've got a streamlined way of being able to engage with us in a more efficient and structured way. And so the final feature is, I had mentioned about customer delight, but also we think, operation excellence is about avoiding or mitigating problems before they come. And so this is also an important aspect in which we strongly considered. And this is around, sending out money, how do you know that maybe because, again, there are always different factors. I may have clicked the button to transfer the funds, but maybe because there was a network glitch or my API somehow, I thought I had submitted, but I didn't submit, or I didn't submit, but then, or I submitted, but then I'm thinking I didn't actually submit quite yet. So all these can cause transactions to, be duplicated. Like I can end up sending funds to someone more than once. And, in a payment gateway, I think that's something that's important that we actually need to mitigate, or in as much as possible, we need to minimize the likelihood of those kinds of things occurring. Of course, there's still that chance that it can occur, but I think for us, we're taking a best effort approach to ensure that we minimize the likelihood that those things can occur. So happy to roll out the idempotency. And idempotency just means, if I do that thing more than once, it will not have a different effect. So if I send funds to you and only to you, or I'm sending funds to my account Henry, if I'm supposed to get 1,000 Waja, that's all I should get, right? If I'm meaning to send 1,000 Waja maybe 2 or 3 times, that should be the intended business outcome. That is to say that I actually meant to send funds to my account more than once. But the guarantee that we want to be able to provide is that at least the one time that you're sending, there should not be more times than that for that one time that you're sending. If you send the transaction once, if the network somehow had glitched, then if you send the second time, we should be able to detect those kind of things. And so the way we do it is through an idempotency key. And what that key is, we also want to be flexible. We are aware that there are different types of systems, different types of merchants and innovators setting up their systems differently. We are letting you, uniquely identify that transaction in a way that is specific to you. like you understand. Like if you process an order, you have an order number. We expect that order number. The customer should be able to keep that information somewhere. Or when I say customer, I mean our merchants, our innovators in this case, not necessarily your customers. But you should be able to say, I'm processing order number one, and order number one should be able to mean something meaningful to you. In that, if you say order number two, then according to you, that is something completely different from order number one. So whatever order number one is a unique thing that you've marked. When you give us that number, the order number, I've given an example, but it can be anything else. We call it the idempotency key. So that's the thing that makes that transaction unique to you and also to us. So what we do is there's that through the API call there you can see. And of course, on our docs website, on our documentation site, we've detailed an explanation into what does actually idempotency mean, how do you handle it, and so on. But when you give us that key, we are actually providing a guarantee that, we'll process that key exactly once. If you process that key, if you submit that key again, then, we'll actually check for it. So in there, of course, what the documentation talks about is just the different rules or, just sort of, I can say, more of a blueprint that explains what is an ideal key that you should have. And if you are submitting a key to us, some good ideas around what kind of key can you submit and how do you make it, unique. So that's what this documentation here talks about for the idempotency key. But you see here with our documentation website, it's also a testing site. It's not just a doc site. So I think on some other platforms, you have the documentation and then you have somewhere where you can actually run the test, which is fine. I think a number of people work like that. We think it's okay. But then we think it's more important also to just give you a live documentation site, which is to say that the documentation site itself is also a testing platform within itself. So you can actually, go read the document and try out that thing within the documentation site itself. So what you're seeing here is an example of that. Of course, demonstrating the idempotency key feature. And in there, you actually submit it as a header, separate from the underlying API request. So this kind of like separation is just to make sure that, whatever information that you're submitting in the data is to do with the transactions, and then the header is more of an additional guard to ensure that you are uniquely identifying that transaction or request, and then you can be able to track and correlate these two things separately. So with the other details, I think with the disbursement, you submit the information as you were submitting before. You add the connectors. That's the institution that you're sending the funds to. You're going to copy all that information. You get that in. You get the necessary security here, as you can see, to be able to get the appropriate API calls. But once you copy those details in, then you can be able to submit. So this is like you are actually submitting transaction information. So you're sending funds to a certain beneficiary, and then you're just sort of like trying the transaction itself, which was the same as before. But then now there's that element of the idempotency key, and so when you submit this API. Let's wait for it to submit there. Yeah. So as you're submitting the details of the API, you see there, I think there was a validation that's telling you that the idempotency key was not correct. There are rules, as I said before, but the most important thing is, like you see here, I sent the transaction the first time. It went through once I met all the necessary rules. But then I attempted to send the transaction again with the same idempotency key that I had used for the successful transaction, and it was successfully able to capture that. So you get the correct HTTP status, which is 409, that is reserved for a conflict. And so we will actually tell you that, you actually used the same key for the previous transactions that you had used. And so this is the correct behavior, because then you don't want to be able to submit multiple transactions using the same idempotency key. To us, then, we say that the transactions that are following subsequently after the successful one should not be allowed to go through. And, I think that gives a level of comfort as well to make sure that, in the likelihood that because of different factors, network glitches and, different systems not responding in a timely manner, we are minimizing the likelihood of you being able to have a duplicate transaction. And so I think that's the sort of approach that we have taken into this journey, I think, around what we've been able to showcase, or the things that we've been able to roll out in this case. Yeah, so of course, I think those are the major features that we had planned to demonstrate for this webinar series. There are other features that are not necessarily being demonstrated here, but then they're also worth mentioning. One that is always ongoing is we had been working hard to get I think all the connectors on board. Happy to say that this week we should be getting at least 4 new connectors to be live soon. And what that means is, I think, for the community, is that you not necessarily have to do anything on your end. That will actually be handled from our side. But then that means also, there's a broader, more use cases now that you can be able to apply. Those will be later on communicated through our usual channels. That's the WhatsApp channel. And also we do occasionally do social media posts that will actually detailed. And then, of course, on the documentation website, we've got a detailed changelog that we are always updating. Do visit it from time to time. That is the docs.onekhusa.com. But do visit it from time to time, because then you'll be able to see the details in which, or the detailed changelog, or a detailed list of things that we've actually rolled out, and some changes and some improvements that we've made. And then also we've rolled out an official C# SDK that is fully operational. I think moving forward, we should be able to roll out a few more SDKs. We know the community has already been asking for a couple of platforms, or a couple of SDKs in a couple of platforms, and then some other plugins as well, like WooCommerce plugins and other sort of popular e-commerce plugins, and those, I think, will be rolled out in the coming weeks. But these are the major features that we actually wanted to demonstrate for us. Thanks for taking the time to go over some of the things that we're actually doing. Thank you for having this or spending this 1 hour session. I think if anything, there's an email, the support at OneKhusa.com. And so for the WhatsApp channel, I think just email support at OneKhusa.com. I think we'll be able to give information on where you can actually follow it up. We've also got OneKhusa, I think, on our Facebook page, LinkedIn, X, forgetting another platform, I'm sure. But those the links for the channels are there as well. You can actually be able to find them. So it's OneKhusa as one word. You should be able to find it on Facebook, LinkedIn, and as well as X. Otherwise, thanks everyone for taking your time in attending this webinar session. Thank you.